Data serves as the soil to every plant, and just like soil, it's very vast and complex. Often, fetching details regarding some particular piece of data is a tiring task, but with VLOOKUP in Excel, this task can be achieved with a single line of command. Hey guys, welcome back to a whole new session from Edureka. My name is Vajiha, and in this session, you'll be learning all that you need to know about VLOOKUP in Excel. So to begin with, we shall first take a brief look at what exactly is VLOOKUP and how it actually works. Then, we shall see the two ways in which it returns data, that is exact and the approximate match. Following that, we shall take a look at the other aspects of this function, such as the behavior with multiple lookup values, case sensitivity, errors, etc. Then, I'll be showing you guys how to implement the two-way lookup, wildcards, and finally how to use VLOOKUP with multiple lookup tables. So moving on towards the first topic of this session, which is what exactly is VLOOKUP in Excel. VLOOKUP is a built-in function that is used to look up and fetch specific data from an Excel sheet. The V stands for vertical, and in order to use the VLOOKUP function in Excel, the data must be arranged vertically. This function comes in very handy when you have a huge amount of data and would be practically impossible to manually search for some specific data. Okay, so how does this function work? The VLOOKUP function basically takes a value, that is the lookup value, and starts to search for it in the leftmost column. When the first occurrence of the lookup value is found, it starts to move towards the right in that row and returns the value from the column that you specify. As I've already mentioned earlier, this function can be used to return both exact as well as approximate matches. However, the default match is approximate match. Okay, so just to show you guys the syntax of this function, I'll jump on to Excel, and in this function bar over here, I'll just type an equal to sign, and then I'll type out VLOOKUP. Okay. So as you can see over here, the VLOOKUP function takes four parameters, that is the lookup value, the table array, the column index number, and the range lookup, which is an optional parameter. Lookup value is the value to be looked out for in the first column of the given table. Table index points to the table from which the data is to be fetched. Column index number is the column from which the value is to be retrieved. Range lookup is a logical value that determines if the lookup value should be a perfect match or an approximate match. True will find the closest match and false will check for an exact match. Okay, so getting back towards our presentation. So now let's take a closer look at the exact and the approximate matches. An exact match tells Excel to return a value from the specified table that corresponds to an exact match of the given value. The approximate match, on the other hand, allows you to retrieve values even when you do not have an exact match for the lookup value. When you want the VLOOKUP function to look for an exact match, you will have to set the range lookup value to false. On the other hand, to make VLOOKUP look for an approximate match, you will need to set the range lookup value to true. Okay, so now let's get back to Excel and see how this actually works. Okay, so as you can see, I've created a table with employee names and IDs along with their designations and salaries. So like I've already told you guys, the VLOOKUP function starts to look for a match of the given lookup value in the first or the leftmost column of this table. Okay, so I'll just select some cell over here, and the first thing that I'll have to do is type in the equal to sign. I hope you guys are aware that before writing any formula or function in Excel, you'll have to type in the equal to sign. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is type in the VLOOKUP function, and then I'll pass some reference lookup value. Say I'll pass in the ID as 103. Next, I should pass in the table array. So basically the table values starting from A2 and goes on till D10. Okay, so the next parameter is the column index number. Now this basically will be the column from which I want the data to be retrieved. So let me just retrieve the salary of this person. So I'll just say column number 4. Now the first example that I'll be showing over here is for an exact match. So therefore, the range lookup value will be false. Okay, so as you can see over here, the salary of the employee having the ID as 103 is $1,300. So what exactly VLOOKUP is doing over here is, it starts to look for 103 in this column, and when it reaches 103, it moves towards the right. And it will go on till that column which you've specified in the column index value that you've given over here. So I hope you guys are clear with this. So to show you guys another example, what I'm going to do is type in the same function over here. And this time I'll pass some other ID, say 104. And the table index is going to be the same again. And the column this time I'll give as 3. And since it's an exact match, I'll type in false. Okay, So I hope you guys are clear with this. Now to show you guys an example of the approximate match, I've created another table over here which contains the marks, the grades, and the class to which they belong. So in order to find an approximate match between these values, what I'm going to do is use the VLOOKUP function along with the range lookup value as true. So first I'll type in VLOOKUP, and then the lookup value this time, I'll specify some value between this range over here. So for example, I'll say 55, and the table is going to be from A to C4. I'll specify the column to be 2, and since this is going to be an approximate match, I'll type in the Boolean value as true. So as you can see, the VLOOKUP function has returned C as the grade for marks being 55. Now what exactly VLOOKUP is doing over here is, it starts to look for an approximate match and stops at the next largest value that is smaller than the lookup value that you've given to it. It will start from here and it will stop at the next largest value. So my next largest value for 55 is 40 itself. So it will start from the beginning of the column, it will stop at 40, and then it will move towards the right. So I hope you guys have understood this. Now to show you guys another example, what I'm going to do is change the value from 55 to say 75. So as you can see, it has started from the leftmost column, moved downwards, and it has stopped at 60, which is the next largest value of the specified lookup value. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with this. So now let's get back to our presentation and see how VLOOKUP behaves when you have multiple lookup values in a given column. So in case you have a table that consists of multiple lookup values, the VLOOKUP stops at the first match of it and retrieves the value from that row in the specified column. So for example, let me get back to Excel and I'll open up sheet 1. Okay, so as you can see over here, I have two values as 105 in the leftmost column. Now, if I specify the lookup value to be 105, what VLOOKUP will do is start from the beginning, move downwards, and it will stop at the first match of 105, and then it will start to move towards the right of this column. Okay, so just to show you all that, what I'm going to do is erase this value from here. Instead of 104, I'll just type in 105 as the value. Okay, so as you can see, the first match of 105 is for an employee named Leo and the designation being Hadoop admin. So I hope you guys have understood this. So now moving on towards the next topic, which is case sensitivity of the VLOOKUP function. VLOOKUP function is case insensitive. So for example, if you have a lookup value that is in uppercase and the value present in the table in the first occurrence is in small case, the VLOOKUP function will still fetch the value from the row in which the value is present. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, I have two values with the name as Rafa. So the first thing that I'll be doing over here is swap these two columns. So now to do that, I'll just select this column, I'll hold down the shift key, and then by pressing down the left click, I'll just shift that column over here. Okay, so now my leftmost column contains the names of all the employees. So now for the example of case sensitivity, I'll make use of the VLOOKUP function again. I'll specify the lookup value to be as Rafa in caps, and my table will be from A2 to D10. I'll give some random column index value, say 4, and I'll use false since it is for an exact match. Okay, so as you all can see on the screen, I've specified RAFA in caps, and the first occurrence of Rafa is not in caps, but the VLOOKUP function has returned 900 as the value, which is the value for the first occurrence of Rafa. So I hope you guys have understood this. So now let's get back to our presentation. Okay, so now let's move on towards our next topic, which is something we all encounter, and that is nothing but errors. It is natural to encounter errors whenever you make use of any function. And similarly, you can encounter errors when you're using the VLOOKUP function as well. Some of the common errors that you'll face while using the VLOOKUP function are the name error, the not available error, the reference error, and value error. Name error basically is to inform you guys that you've made some mistake in the syntax. Not available error is returned in case no match is found for a given lookup value. The reference error is basically encountered when you give a reference to a column that is not available in the table. And the value error is encountered when you place wrong values to the parameters or miss some compulsory parameters. Okay, so now let's get back to Excel and take a deep look at each of these. So first, talking about the name error. Like I've already told you guys, the name error informs you that you've made a mistake in the syntax. To avoid syntactical errors, it's better to use the function wizard provided by Excel for every function. This function wizard helps you with the information regarding every parameter and the type of values that you need to enter. To open up the function wizard, simply click on the f of x button present over here. So I'll just erase all these values. Okay, so as you can see, Excel is providing information about each parameter that you have to enter. So according to Excel, lookup value can be any value, and it is the value that is to be found in the first column of the table. So for now, I'll just close this function wizard over here. I'll select a new cell and I'll make use of the VLOOKUP function again. Okay, so now I have names or string values present in the first column of my table. Okay, so I'll not specify these string values within quotes. Specify the table array and the column to be 3. The value I'll specify as false. Okay, so as you can see, I've not given this within quotes. And now I'll hit enter. So as you can see over here, I've encountered a name error. Excel also gives you information about this. The moment you encounter any error, Excel provides a drop-down list in order to help you out to debug this error. So what I'm going to do is open up the function wizard, and over here, I'll just specify this within quotes. Okay, so I hope you all have noticed, before entering the lookup value within quotes, the function wizard was showing a name error in red over here. So as soon as I put this within quotes, the error has gone. Okay, so now I'll click on OK. So as you can see, the error has been debugged. Okay, so the next error that we were talking about is the not available error. So in case I specify some name that is not present in the table, say for example, Loris, and I hit enter. So as you can see, Excel has returned an error saying not available. So the next error that we spoke about was the reference error. So I'll just change this value from here. I'll say Sergio. And like I've already told you all, the reference error is encountered when you give a reference to a column that is not available in that table. So let me just change the column index value from 3 to 7 and hit enter. So as you can see, column number 7 is not present in my table, and therefore I've encountered a reference error. So the last thing we spoke about was the value error. Now this error, like I've already told you, is encountered when you place wrong values to parameters or miss some compulsory parameters. So let me just change the values from here. I'll change this to 3 again. And I'm not going to specify the first parameter. And I'll hit enter. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with this. So now let's move on towards the next topic, which is two-way lookup. Two-way lookup refers to fetching a value from a two-dimensional table from any cell of the reference table. In order to perform a two-way lookup using VLOOKUP, you will need to use the match function along with it. Okay, so I'll just get back to Excel. And the first thing that I'm going to do over here is not use hard-coded values. Instead, I'll be using reference to some cell. So in this cell over here, I'll just type in some name. I'll say Ivan. And over here, I'll just specify as salary. Okay, so now I want the VLOOKUP function to fetch the salary value of Ivan. So like I've already told you all, in order to perform a two-way lookup, I'll have to use the VLOOKUP function along with the match function. So the first thing that I'm going to do over here is type in the equal to sign followed by VLOOKUP. And like I've already told you all, I'll not be using hard-coded values. Instead, I'll be using the cell reference. So I'll use the cell reference of H6, which is Ivan. And the next is the table array that is going to start from A1 to D10. Okay, so now I'll be doing something very interesting, that is making use of the match function. So the match function basically takes 3 parameters. The first is the lookup value. Now this value is the value to be searched for. The lookup array is the range of cells that consist of the lookup values, and the match type can be any number that is 0, 1 or -1, representing an exact match, less than or greater than respectively. Okay, so the first value of this parameter is going to be I5, and the lookup array will be from A1 to D1. And since I want it to be an exact match, I'll type in 0 followed by false as the last parameter of the VLOOKUP function. So as you can see, the salary for the employee Ivan is $800. So now what will happen in case I change the value of any of these two values present over here? So I'll just change from salary to designation and see what happens. Okay, so as you can see, the moment I change the value of I5, VLOOKUP has also updated the output. So similarly, if I change the value of Ivan, say for example, I'll change it to Sergio. So as you can see over here, if I change any of these values, the output is being updated. Now instead of typing in all the values each time and changing them manually, what you can also do is create a drop-down list over here. To create a drop-down menu, click on Data, and from the Data Tools group, select Data Validation. Okay, so from the Settings pane over here, select List, and for the source of the list, I'm going to give in all the names that are present over here. And then I'll click on OK. So as you can see, I've created a drop-down list with all the employee names present over here. So if I change any of these, the value is going to be updated accordingly. Similarly, I can also create a list over here. So I'll just go to Data, and then from Data Tools, I'll go to Data Validation, and from Settings, I'll select List. And for the source, I'll specify the name, ID, designation, and salary. And then I'll hit OK. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with this. So now moving on towards something very interesting, which is making use of wildcards in VLOOKUP. In case you do not know exact lookup value, but only a part of it, you can make use of wildcards. In Excel, the star symbol represents a wildcard character. This symbol informs Excel that the sequence that comes before, after, or between must be searched for, and there can be any number of characters before or after them. Okay, so for example, let me get back to my Excel sheet. So the first thing that I'm going to do over here is type in some sequence, let's say ERG, and over here, I'll make use of the VLOOKUP function. Okay, so instead of typing in the whole name, what I'm going to do is make use of wildcard characters. So that is star or the asterisk symbol, followed by the ampersand symbol, and then I'll type in the cell reference, which is F12, an ampersand symbol again, and then the star sign. Next, I'll have to specify the table array, the column from which I have to retrieve the value, and the range lookup. So as you can see over here, ERG is present for the name Sergio. It has a number of characters present before and after that. Okay, so I hope you guys are clear with this. So now let's move on towards the last topic of this session, which is multiple lookup tables. In case you have multiple lookup tables, you can use the if function along with the VLOOKUP function in order to look into either of the tables based on some given condition. Okay, so as you can see on the screen, I've already created 3 tables over here. Now the main table contains data of 2 stores, that is store 1 and store 2, and the sales and the profit of each of these stores. Now for each of these stores, I have 2 tables which contains the sales marked with the profits. Now what I'm going to do over here is create named ranges for these 2 tables. To create a named range, select the table. From the ribbon tab, click on Formulas. And from this Defined Names group over here, click on Define Name. Okay, so the name I'll provide over here is Table 1, and then I'll click on OK. So the name of this table is Table 1. Similarly, I'll create a name for this table as well, and I'll just name it as Table 2. So now, all I have to do is click on this cell over here, and to calculate the profit, I'll make use of the VLOOKUP function. And the first parameter will be the sales that is present over here. So in this case, it's going to be C2, and then comes in the if function. So the if function is basically going to check if it is store 1 or store 2, and if it is store 1, it will return table 1, and if it is store 2, it's going to return table 2 as the output. So I'll just say if the value of B2 is equal to store 1. And if this is true, I'll make use of table 1, else I'll make use of table 2. Okay, so I hope you're clear with that. The value to be retrieved is the profit, which is in column 2, so I'll specify 2. And then I want it to be an approximate match, so I'll specify true as the range parameter. Okay, so I hope you're clear with that. So as you can see, for the sales of $400 and store 1, the profit value is 70, and therefore VLOOKUP has fetched 70 from this table. So in order to calculate the profit of all these values over here, all I'm going to do is copy this formula. Okay, so I hope you all are clear with this. This not applicable error is because I do not have any value corresponding to 200 in the store 2 table. So I hope you all are clear with this. Okay, so this brings us to the end of this session. I hope you've enjoyed and learned something new. In case you have any doubts or queries, please do let me know in the comment section and I will revert to you at the earliest. Till then, goodbye and take care.